So I was thinking about this for a while, and I didn't know initially how to start this video, and this is probably the second time I'm doing it, but speed boosters, I think, are one of the best things you could use for a high-speed camera. Now, to quickly illustrate that point at the beginning of the video, right now, the footage that you're looking at on the main camera looks very dark and probably a little out of focus, honestly. But that's because I'm filming with the Ember right now, and I don't have a speed booster on it. Now, it's filming in 4K at 60 frames, so that's why it is a little bit bright with just normal lights on. But let's see what happens when I put a speed booster on, keep the lens the same, keep all the camera settings the same, keep everything exactly the same. The only thing I'm going to add is this speed booster. Ready? There, look at that. I know it's kind of hard to believe in a way that something so small as essentially just a mirror on an adapter that you adapt to the camera and lens makes everything different and actually better. Now, I'm going to try my best to answer a lot of things about speed boosters and why I think they're literally just the most overpowered thing to use on a high-speed camera. Before we continue, I'm going to switch back to the Sony a7S III because even recording at 60 frames on the Ember, it chews up storage like no tomorrow. So let's go back to the Sony and transition. There we go. So before I continue, I have always talked about using a speed booster on every high-speed camera I've ever used. I, again, am not going to give you the full definition, super educated reason of what a speed booster is and how it works. I'm going to give the brief layman terms, layman? That sounds right. I'm going to just give a brief summary though of why it works, some of the disadvantages, and some of the huge advantages, especially again for a high-speed camera. We'll be setting this aside here just to, for a thumbnail or something. Hang in there, little buddy. So let's just start what a speed booster does. In the most basic general terms, if you were to put a speed booster on a camera, what it does is it gives the camera more light, and it also essentially widens the image, as you saw in the beginning of this video. The reason why it's getting brighter is because it increases the aperture stop by 1. So for example, I was shooting the entire intro on the Freefly Wave at f4, but in reality that'd be f3, or I guess 2.8. But it's really weird when you think about it because I wasn't filming at f2.8 or f3, I was filming at f4. And the reason for this is just because of how the speed booster works. If you don't understand how it works, it's essentially just a piece of glass in a normal camera adapter that focuses more light onto the sensor, allowing it to get brighter, as well as making the lens wider is not the proper way to do it. I don't know the proper term. I will say, from personal experience, when it comes to using speed boosters on high-speed cameras, the two disadvantages, finding infinity focus is sometimes it just doesn't work. That can be a big thing for some people, but because the way modern speed boosters are that you can move the inner glass up in and out of the adapter, that usually isn't a problem. I'm just lazy and don't do it for every lens. The second thing I see constantly, which I haven't experienced, but maybe you have, is lack of sharpness when it comes to using a speed booster with any camera. Now, when it comes to the benefits I kind of already addressed, is the picture's widened, as well as you get more light. The main reason why I use a speed booster on this is I'm not great with math on the fly. I like using full frame cameras or something as close to as possible. For example, when I pop on a 35 lens on the Sony a7S III, the R5, the 7.4, I understand how that 35 is going to look. When I put a 35mm lens on the Ember without a speed booster, I have to now do math because it's a crop sensor or a Super 35 and understand where that's going to get me, which is roughly 56 with a 35mm. A speed booster gets me closer at 35, gets me to about 40, which is way better than, eyeballing it around 56 or whatever. I can understand that, okay, putting a 35 on this camera gets me close to 40, that's close to 35. The other obvious reason why I use a speed booster is, again, the light. I understand that if you have all the money in the world, you can buy great Godox, aperture, insert what light brand that you like to use for, cameras, and you can just set those up all around and not have an issue. I'm still currently working with a broken Kodak's light. Essentially, light isn't within my budget when it comes to doing things with high-speed camera. But I want to get to the main point of this video of using a speed booster on a high-speed camera. So let's go to some examples right now. Right now, you are looking at a video of me waving my arm in front of my shed with the Freefly Ember. This is filmed at 4K, 108 frames at an f5.6. Now I'm going to show you a clip of me doing the same exact thing with just a speed booster. Nothing has changed again. No settings have changed. The only addition is the speed booster. As you can tell right off the bat that the image is not only brighter, but it also, again, widens the picture, which is, again, the goal of a speed booster. The one thing I've tried to note when using the Freefly Ember is the loss of quality when it comes to doing this. And with this just quick example I've taken, I can't see that at all. Maybe some of you can. Maybe you could nitpick if you zoomed in really, really close. But just from a standard watching a video, I wouldn't be able to tell that there's a difference in quality whatsoever. Before I get too far, I want to show you guys the same thing, but shooting in 5K. So you're going to see me again in front of the shed waving my arm at 5K 600 frames at, again, f-stop 5.6. No speed booster at all. This is just, if you threw on a lens with a normal adapter, this is what you're getting. Now let's look at the same thing again, but with a speed booster. And again, it's brighter. In fact, it's slightly overexposed, which again is something you can fix within the camera and the lens. But for the purpose of this video, nothing has been changed. These are just the raw clips, no color correction, nothing. And it was after this clip I realized something very important with the Freefly Ember shooting in 5K 600 frames with a speed booster. If I were to set up my Sony in the same exact spot, which I didn't move the tripod, and put the same 35mm lens on, it is very close to looking just like the Freefly Ember 5K with a 35mm on. This 5K footage is essentially zoomed out 75%. And the reason for that is because all the videos I shoot are in 4K. So if this being in 5K, I have to zoom out a little bit so you can see the whole picture. If I were to shoot with the Freefly Ember at 5K with a speed booster and then in post zoom out to that, 75%, essentially it is so close to, it's very identical to just shooting full frame slow motion in 4K. Which I didn't realize that at first until I made this video. Now this just may seem like, oh, my mic fell out, that's cool. Now I know this is just a bunch of nerd talk and blah blah blah, and some people just don't even use speed boosters, but I will say it is nice to essentially have a full frame, in huge quotes, full frame, high speed camera that I could easily just put a lens on that I know and understand how far it is and how far it's going to reach and how wide it's going to be, and easily match it distance wise. That I can't even express how happy I am that I discovered that. Now let's talk about that second point that is essentially a downside of using a speed booster is image quality. What I have done is I have quickly just filmed Mario Kart 8, I think it's Mario Kart 8, for the Nintendo Switch. It's just the cover of the game. It had a lot of colors and a lot of detail. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to first again show you the 4K without a speed booster, and then I'm going to show you the 4K with a speed booster. So one thing you could say right off the bat is when you look at the 4K without the speed booster, is the quality is probably maybe a little bit better. But you could also argue that I could have just moved the camera closer, get it essentially similar to what it was with 4K without a speed booster, and the quality pretty much be exactly the same, but you would also with a speed booster still get to keep that light and be able to play more of that. And the same thing goes for 5K. Here's 5K without a speed booster and 5K with a speed booster. Again, if you really wanted to argue the nitty gritty, I was zooming in up here on Link, the dog, and the Splatoon character. I don't know, Nintendo. I just know the Mario Brothers. But you could zoom in on all these, and honestly, even being nitpicky about it, I think they all kind of look very similar. And I'm sure there's some people out there who probably have better lenses, even better speed boosters, or something that could argue the point that a speed booster could be worse. But from all the experience that I have, and from the times I've used it, and just from these quick examples, again, these aren't like super, real test-worthy examples, just showing quick examples of how it works and how it changes the camera, why not use it? For me, it's easier to buy an adapter that's like used $70 and brand new $140 than it is to buy a $600 light. But that's my take on a speed booster with the Freefly Ember. Let me know if you guys used it on, different cameras, other high-speed cameras, or anything else, if you've experienced something similar or something completely different. Again, this is just what I've experienced, and I just really wanted to share why I think a speed booster is just extremely helpful to have. That's gonna do it for this video though. Hopefully you learned something. Hopefully it was, the rambling was down on the lower scale, and hopefully this will be under 10 minutes or, something enjoyable. But hopefully you enjoyed, and yeah, I'll see you in the next one.